Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. I'm Tunde Abiola.
And I'm Biola Alabi.
The House of Representatives has passed a bill banning plastic bags in the country. The lawmakers said the bill is to address the problem of waste management and protect the environment. According to the Plastic Bag Prohibition Bill, any person found guilty of the offences shall be liable upon conviction to a fine not exceeding 500,000 naira or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years or to both such fine and imprisonment. It also prescribes a fine of 5 million naira to companies guilty of the offences. To help us look at the many aspects of this legislation is Akintunde Disu, a social entrepreneur, acclaimed artist, and founder of Pop Beach Club, a bohemian resort brand known for staycations and its beachwear label made from recycled plastic. He's also an environmental activist involved in finding solutions for preschool and primary schools in rural areas. Welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here, Tunde and Biola. Thank you for having me.
So today, Tanzania becomes the 34th African nation to ban plastics. And they've gone far. Even visitors must surrender any plastic bags in their possession when they arrive. Their fines, I mean, we talked about the Nigerian bill, the House of Reps bill, which imposes a fine or seeks to impose a fine of 500,000 naira. The Tanzanian model is $430,000. So in view of that, in comparison to that, what do you feel about this bill that's been proposed that's been passed by the House of Representatives? Is it far-reaching enough? Is it broad enough? Is it detailed enough?
It's certainly not detailed enough, and I think that's the first thing before we get into anything. First of all, before you pass a bill of this significance in a country like this, you have to prepare. You have to give the people the chance to prepare. You know, in the state of New York has just banned plastic bags. This was first started in 2017. They created a committee and they've worked on ways to introduce substitutes to this before they went ahead with it. I think the UK has just announced a ban on plastic bags as well, but that's to take effect in 2021. In India, many states have done this as well, and you always give the people time, especially in an economy like ours, where we import, you know, and then the people who manufacture plastic bags in Nigeria are generally small-scale manufacturers, and you have to give them notice and allow them. Otherwise, you risk making an ass of the law, you know, and it's becoming a burden to everybody else and achieving nothing, which is a very dangerous thing. Because then, once the law has been passed, then the law is there. You know, people will just ignore it and carry on with their lives, and there's nothing you can do. It's really hard to revise the law, so it's best we create a good one.
What I would like you to do for people at home, because everyone uses plastic, everyone feels like they understand plastic, but I think when we're talking about pollution and the oceans, especially the role of plastics, I think people think of plastic bags. Can you just sort of give people at home plastic pollution and what that means and how we all contribute to it?
Well, the thing is that we have no, plastic bags last for, on average, 400 million years.
That's eternity.
Yes, exactly. You know, human beings would have left the earth, and plastic bags would still be here.
So that means, just so we do this, when someone gives you a plastic bag after you've bought something, that bag alone will last
forever.
Forever.
Yes.
Wherever you put it.
Yes, wherever you put it. Now, because we don't have proper waste management facilities or infrastructure in this country, and especially in Lagos, it all ends up in the ocean. When it ends up in the ocean, most fish and most organisms eat jellyfish. Is one of their main diet. Plastic bags look like jellyfish in the ocean, and so they just eat the plastic. Now, one of Lagos State's greatest advantages is our soft capital that comes from the fish in the sea, which means we can feed the population of 20 million because we have cheap protein. This is our truth.
So when you break it down into the practical effects that it will have on each person's life, it makes it a lot more real. Because what do you say? I want you to comment on those who say that movements like this, plastic bag ban as the last thing we need in Nigeria when we're dealing with poverty and insecurity. Major problems are so they're described, and issues like this are trivialized almost. And then also the fact that you have really high-profile international climate change deniers who totally dismiss the threat that plastic bags cause to the environment.
Well, I'm glad you said it trivializes things when we have bigger problems, because this is a great opportunity for us to solve a lot of those bigger problems. Nigeria is the #1 producer of cassava in the world. Before there were plastic bags, there was cellophane. Cellophane was first commercialized in 1929. Cellophane is basically made from cellulose, which you get from cassava, corn, or whatever. And it is a substitute, it's a direct substitute for plastic. So this is an incredible opportunity for the government to legislate, to provide finance, to provide laws, and to provide technical know-how for us to lead the world in plastic bag manufacturing, in cellulose bag manufacturing. And by doing that, to provide employment, to provide so many different kinds of things, that we can do. So it is not, it's not a trivial subject whatsoever. It is something that is an incredible opportunity for us, and that we should visit and make sure we bring out a really good law that can really impact on Nigerians. It's a brilliant opportunity.
So cellulose is an option, but it's expensive, especially it's expensive to start. What are other alternative options that government can start to talk about? Because without alternatives, the bill is dead on arrival.
Well, cellulose is the most viable option because we already have a supply chain for cassava. We already have a supply chain for turning it into cellulose, ethanol and stuff like that gets used in, all the other industries and things like that. So it is our best option. Paper is not an option whatsoever.
Tell me why paper is not an option.
Because we don't have the supply chain. We don't have the paper mills, and we can't do that.
Yeah, we import.
But is most of the plastic we use not imported?
Most of it is, as with everything in Nigeria, but there's a lot of plastic that is produced in Nigeria because, the thing with Nigeria is that the numbers always work in our favor.
So I have some stats here. So Nigeria and Algeria are the largest importers of plastic products in Africa, but Nigeria also has 3,000 plastic manufacturing companies, and most of them manufacture polythene plastic bags.
Yes. Yeah. So, so that is what we want to address, to get those people to convert into using cellulose, And it is not an expensive option. It's expensive to start.
Yes.
And when you think about it, you always have to think about the effect because it's national, So we should pay the upfront cost. Government should provide, that's what the Bank of Industry and stuff like that is, to help assist in the procurement of the upfront cost. And then they can continue and we can create this whole industry that works on cellulose, not plastic,
So one of the things that people in other countries have done to deter the use of plastic is there's a surcharge on plastic bags. There are certain stores, if you go into and you ask for, when they say paper or plastic and you say it's plastic, there is almost this look of, I dare you to say plastic. It really is. There's some stores where you're like, paper, like nothing, just give me the stuff. I'll even hold it. So when you look at sort of that education process, how people have now been educated enough to understand that plastic does harm. And I think so one thing is plastic bags, but there is a lot of plastic in our culture. I have never gone to an Owambe where they weren't giving people plastic. I've never gone to a party where people weren't packing food in plastic. There's a lot of different types of plastic everywhere in ours. How do we even begin the process, or how do you work with people to help people that are heavily dependent on plastic products actually understand the harmful effect it has on our communities?
Well, I think everybody does. If your mom, I'm sure, just used to collect plastic bags. Yes. I think innately in us, we know it's not good for the environment. So we just keep it aside, just thinking, I'm not going to throw it away. And it also has a value. Plastic is, it's 1 for 1 with oil. 1 kilogram of plastic is equal to 1 kilogram of petrol. You know, that's how valuable it is. So when you think of all this plastic that we have, you have to put a value to it. There are 20 million Lagosians. So let's say each Lagosian uses 1 kilogram of plastic a year. That is 20 million kilograms of plastic. That is 20 million liters of petrol that we're using. Now that is fuel. That should go straight into energy to provide power and solve that problem for us. It shouldn't just be left, you know, in landfills. Singapore does this. I went to school on the Isle of Man, and this is what they do. They've been doing this for years now. You know, just convert it straight into fuel and get it out of your system. You know, people will say, oh, but what of the toxicity and stuff like that? They're scrubbers. There are ways of dealing with this. We're a modern world. We've got technology to deal with all problems. But to just say, oh, you're not going to face the problem, you know, is not the way. Is not the way to go.
So that's usually the argument that apparently it releases carcinogens into the air. But how true is this? Does the research back that up?
Yes, it does release toxic these things, but you don't have to let it go into the air. There are scrubbers that will capture all of this, and it's a very minute amount as well. And there's, you know, you just capture all of it, and then you can deal with that on its own. You know, it's a very minute amount compared to the amount of plastic, and it is no more than the fumes from your exhaust.
Right. I want to take you back to the bill. You said the bill is not detailed enough. What else should be included in the bill?
They should give a timeline. They should give options, which is cellulose. They should provide finance, and they should provide technology backing, you know, for this, and they should give guidelines. You know, it shouldn't just be plastic bags. You know, they should focus on, because there's shrink wrap when you buy Swallow. There's the plastic that goes into that. It should be all of this. You know, they're the tiny little bags. You know, it should be wider ranging and more detailed. Let's know what's included and what's not included in it. You know, and you know, that kind of thing. Give us some time. You know, give us till 2021. You know, something like that, so that we can phase this whole thing and we can deal with it properly. And then during that time, governments can also make sure that there are distribution networks set up to aid these industries, get the stuff out, you know, and all these other little things. And then they can educate the public as well, so that the public become aware of why these things are happening.
So for me, that was a glaring omission, the education part and the enforcement as well. Who exactly will enforce it? The bill is silent on that. And if you're silent on that, then it becomes everybody's job and nobody's job. This is how things just don't get enforced. We have so many laws, and enforcement is a problem.
Exactly. And you know, what is going to happen is that the poor shopkeepers are going to bear the brunt of it. You know, the policemen are just going to come there and harass them. They're going to harass people walking in the streets. They're going to harass anybody at any point in time. You know, because, I mean, 500,000 naira, or is it 50,000 naira?
500,000.
Yeah. It's going to turn into one of all those car things. You just give 5,000 naira and then you walk off, you know, and then it's just a constant hassle. So they really have to address all these kind of things. And as you said, in where was it, Tanzania or somewhere like that?
Tanzania.
You know, you stop it at the airport, you stop it everywhere. You just ban it everywhere on that date in 2021 or wherever, you know. But by then it would already have been phased out from Nigeria. You know, we would already have the substitutes in place, and would already have moved on. You know, the cellulose, 180 days max for it to get out of the environment totally.
And so that's how long it takes. So cellulose is biodegradable, and you said it takes 180 days.
Max. Some of it goes in 30 days. Okay. Yeah, and compared to hundreds of millions of years for plastic.
So there's so many different classes of plastic. There's so many different plastics. The bill is focused now on plastic bags.
Yes.
Is that a good start? I mean, even though the bill has its shortcomings, is plastic bags a good start for us?
Plastic bags is a brilliant start because it's just a blot on the landscape. You see it everywhere, and it's an ocean threat. It's a threat to our waters. It's a threat to our food supply. Yeah, you cannot get rid of plastic. Plastic is essential.
Yes.
You know, and plastic is good. Yes. You know, because you have to. It's
cheap. It's versatile.
Yes. You can't get rid of plastic. What you do is you manage it. Yeah. You know, you manage it, you use it. It's very valuable. So much work went into getting it out of the earth and producing it in the first place. So you don't just throw it away.
Do you think so sort of speaking about plastic bags, how can state governments legislate around plastic bags as well?
Well, they take their cue from the federal government, and then they start moving, in that way to see what is their own local problem and how they can move forward with it. Like Lagos State, for example, it takes its cue from the federal government, make sure that the supply chains and everything are set in place for all the for plastic bags to get out and be replaced by cellulose. We now go and then we look at our power problem and we look at our waste management problem and we sort out ways to join these two together and to turn plastic into energy to provide power and to clean up our waste and to move forward into a cleaner, more efficient, richer Lagos. That's what we're looking for.
So tell us about Nigeria's environmental deterioration, in global rankings that we're discussing earlier.
Well, when I first started this thing about, 5 years ago when I became an actual activist and I ran a campaign to produce swimming shorts from recycled plastic for my label, Pop Beach Club. And I ran a campaign on Indiegogo. And we weren't even on any charts. The Bite of Benin was blue when you looked at the world polluters. Right now, this week, we were named number 9 in the rank of polluters in the world. That's in about 5 years. We've gone from nothing to number 9. That's just a terrible, terrible thing, and it just shows the scope of the problem. At that rate, we'll be number 1, number 2, number 3. Indonesia. These are huge economies. Why are we there?
What happened? in 5 years, I feel like the economy hasn't grown that much in 5 years. How did we get to a place where we've grown in so much waste?
I think it's the way that the waste was managed in the last 4 years, where a lot of it just got dumped in the ocean. Because we all know that there was a breakdown and I think it just ended up in the ocean.
No, that was a very clear. We talked about it here many time and time again. From when from when you would go onto the waters in Lagos 3, 4, 5 years ago, and the last 2-3 years, we did see a huge increase, and also just increase in corner side refuse dumping, which the first thing you see is these plastic bags that are.
Yes, and it all ends up in the ocean.
Are plastic bags recyclable?
They are, but it's a
very hard process.
Yes. It's a very hard process, and it's an expensive process. It's pointless to try and recycle it, really.
Based on the cost and what you get from it.
Yes.
But it's so powerful, and it's damage to the environment.
Exactly. It's the smallest things that have the most power. Viruses, bacteria, things you don't. They are the ones. Yes, they are the things that have the most power.
But tell us about the swim shorts campaign. I'm interested in that.
Well, the swim shorts campaign was because I also do childcare, preschool and primary school education, and I wanted to find a way to fund this without having to seek for donations all the time and everything. And my two focuses, because we're a beach club, so we're surrounded by children who have just no access to proper education, and we're surrounded by plastic in the oceans. So I wanted to solve these two problems, and so I came up with the idea of making the shorts from recycled plastic and, drawing attention to that. And then the money from the shorts goes to fund my activities with the childcare, with the preschool education. And so we've been working in that for the last 4 years, and we're just ready to, we're in the stage of developing an app, and that we hope would address this preschool and primary school education for all Nigerians. It's a technology solution to the problem, because the problem in the education is actually that there are 560 languages in Nigeria. Your mother is your first teacher, and if your mother could be thought to teach you in English, then we would have done half the job of solving that problem. Because what happens is Nigerian kids at the age of 6, 7, when they get into school, are normally highly advanced because their mothers are very good teachers. What happens then is that you now get into this stage where you're being taught a foreign language by someone who normally doesn't even speak your mother tongue.
Yes.
So it's like you learning French from a German when
Yes.
you speak English.
Yes.
You know, it's like, how the hell do you, how do you communicate? It's just so difficult. So we're trying to use technology to sort that out. And it all comes from this recycled plastic shorts that we produced and we're using to move
How
this
do you
forward.
produce them? What type of process do they go through?
Well, the actual fabric comes from China, which is the #1 plastic recycler in the world. You know, they buy plastic from all over the world, you know, and there are no more spinning mills in Nigeria. They're all dead. So we tried to do it in Nigeria, but we couldn't. So we buy from China and then we bring it to Lagos, and we manufacture it here using local
talent.
tailors and local talents that we trained, because when we started, it was a nightmare. Nobody knew how to handle the fabric.
One of the things that happened this week also was this row between the Philippines and Canada. So one of the things that happens with a lot of the Western countries, they ship their waste to different parts of the world because it is cheaper to get rid of waste in those places. The Philippines then decided there was a year-long row where these containers weren't allowed on the ground. And the President Duterte said, you need to take these back. So there was a lot of back and forth. They're now on their way back to Canada. When you look at those type of challenges, especially when you look at economies like the Philippines, like Malaysia, where they have traditionally been places where the West has dumped their waste, do you think places on the continent in Africa are in danger to being sort of these cargoes being moved to Africa?
We are in danger. You see, what has happened is that I think last year, China shut its doors and said it's no longer collecting waste from the rest of the world because it had built its own infrastructure to collect waste from its own people, because China used the waste to power the cities and for industry on the coast, which is where they have their industry. So it was easier for you to ship it from the rest of the world than to get it from inland China. Now that China has sorted that out, and China no longer needs our waste. So the rest of the world is now in trouble of what to do with their waste, especially America, the biggest economy. You know, so they're going to be looking for places to ship this waste to. Now we can either bury the waste and bury our heads in and pretend we're ostriches, you know, or we can face this problem, look at it as an opportunity, and move forward with like some of the things I said earlier, you know, like power plants, which is what China did and stuff like that, you know, on the one side, and, you know, and sort out our own economy.
What should the public awareness model look like in really creating a sort of collective effort regarding the responsible use of plastics? Does it begin at schools, in marketplaces? What should the government be doing, and should individuals and businesses?
I think it begins at schools, because, you know, with everything, you know, it's the youth that you have to focus on, because you're never dealing with now, you're always dealing with the future, and the youths are the future. You know, so it needs, you know, people need to start taking responsibility. They have to understand that this plastic is not going anywhere. We need to change our collection, the way we collect plastic, you know, especially in towns and cities. Let people start separating the plastic so that it's easier for us to deal with. And then we need to focus on the people who the garbage, who, you know, look after garbage, on the, you know, the sorters, the people who select them. We need to develop infrastructure and to bring these people into the formal economy and help them, so that they know how they are sorting out this plastic, and because they already do it, but just once you put value on the plastic, then they know that, you know, people can go out and collect. I mean, there are things like now you can pay for your school fees by using plastic, and we've got so many, you know, like recyclers and stuff that are in this. So we need to encourage those kind of of industries, where you bring in the plastic, you get some value for it, and you can move on, And we really need to focus on this so that the whole economy is involved in cleaning up the environment.
So there's such a huge focus on plastic, and also because it is a huge problem. But there's another boiling problem around e-waste that people have been sort of alerting the world to, which is, as much as we're using solar panels, there are more batteries. I mean, all our electronics. That how are we doing when it comes to disposing of e-waste in Nigeria?
Well, I mean, there's been an industry built around the e-waste thing, and there are loads of places that collect these things and sort it out and everything. I'll give like, for example, every single, these things are very valuable. So when they add waste to it, it really confuses the
consumers.
And it confuses the issue, because, for example, every single piece of gold that has ever been mined in this world is still here. We're not running out of gold. We're not running out of lead. We're not running out of all these things. Nothing leaves the earth. Sure. It's all trapped in the earth. So yes, you develop industries that can sort this out.
Sure.
They can remove all these things from all the waste. And then you help and guide them so that they can do it safely, without damaging their own lives. You educate them as to the effect, so that when they go into these businesses, when the youth go into these businesses, they know, so that they are not taken advantage of, and they don't just affect their health when they're just trying to get a buck, so that they can carry on their living. So everything is just education. We have to become a nation that is education centered. That really is is what we're looking for.
So what's the standard for you? Is Rwanda your gold standard? Because that is for a lot of people, because it's the cleanest country in Africa. But how they've managed to sort of achieve and be successful with their plastics ban is the fact that they don't have any plastics companies in Rwanda, so that interest does not exist there as it does here. I mean, you were, surprisingly for an activist, you were actually considerate of businesses.
Yes.
And wanting them to have time. Eco-warriors tend to take quite a hard line, and we want everything banned yesterday. But what are the practical sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, pitfalls that could arise in this drive? Because there are vested interests in Nigeria.
There are lots of vested interests. We are a petroleum nation, so you can imagine, 20 million liters of petrol is not a joke. So, but there are models that we can use. There's Singapore, which is a lot better than Rwanda to start off with, for like a city like Lagos. There are places like, there's China for a large nation. Yeah. There's India that's moving on with it, with the technology. India has some of the best technologies for producing of all the cellulose based products and stuff like that. So there's Sweden that, imports waste and treats it and uses, and that's a first world country, and everything. So there are loads of models we can use. We just need to pick one. Being aware of the size and and the numbers that are involved. What would be your
preferred model?
I would say right now where we are, I would say it would be something more like a Singapore model, really, where we are, because we do need the industries around. We have to create the jobs for the people. Or China, actually. We have to create the jobs for the people. We have to use what we have, we have to be aware of the environment, and we have to create power in Nigeria. We have to look for solutions, local solutions for generating power, and we have to be aware of our needs at all points in time.
What are you optimistic sort of about the new way forward, especially in Lagos, around waste? There has been some conversations going on how they're going to tackle waste, especially after the last 3-4 years of not addressing the issue properly.
Well, I'm always optimistic, you know.
You have to be.
You have to be. You have to be. But I really hope that this government, sees it holistically. You know, they're able to look at the big picture. It's not about picking it up. It's about what are you going to do with it after you pick it up. You know, I really hope they're thinking about that.
So that's a point that often gets lost, isn't it? What do you do after you collect it? It's
Yeah.
always
Well,
about
citizens are like,
collecting.
just pick
Just
this up.
collect it, just get it out of my way. Yeah, I don't want to see it.
Yeah, like on the beach, you know, there are people who always do like the beach drives and everything. And in Elashe, Elashe goes all the way across. You know, the beach starts in Takwa Bay and ends in, I don't know, Algeria. You know, so it's like, I'm just like, I'm not picking up any rubbish, you know. It's like, because the wind is just gonna blow it back again. You know, it's like, yeah, you look at it and now that's you. You know, it's not the locals. You know, let it be a constant reminder to you of the damage that you're doing. You know,
I like that idea. It's like, no, we're not doing that.
I'm not picking up your rubbish, no.
Yeah, because people need to see that.
Yes,
And need to know that they did that.
And take responsibility for it.
Yes, own it. Own it. It's your plastic, not mine.
Well, thank you so much for being here.
It's
and I
a
guess
pleasure.
together we'll all
Thank
continue
you.
to work towards a cleaner and better environment. We really need to be
Forward
better
to the future.
citizens.
We do.
We
We do.
do.
We do. Thank you so much
Thank
for having me. It's
you.
been a real pleasure.